Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. In today's video, we've obviously got the game coming up tomorrow against Brighton. So the match preview will be uploaded first thing on Wednesday morning. So stay tuned to the channel for that one. In today's video, I want to talk about Enzo Fernandez because I feel as though in Chelsea's recent form, there have been some takes that I've seen, which again, to be fair, we have been a better side without Enzo in the team. But Enzo has come out and spoken about his injury, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the Chelsea dilemma that we will have this summer within the midfield. And the good news is, it's actually a good problem to have because we've already done the business to spend the 100 million on Enzo, and we've done the business to spend 100 million on Moises Caicedo. But before we get into this discussion, we're going to go through a couple of other little news stories today. Of course, it is the final week of the season, so videos are going to be coming your way thick and fast. You guys have been showing so much love to the content recently, so I want to say from the bottom of my heart, which is somewhere around here, I think, as far as I remember, thank you for all the love and support. Make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the videos, and hit the like button because it lets me know that you are enjoying yourselves. We begin with some news about a man that was born on the 1st of July 2006, and I remember that day very well because it's my dad's birthday and I was absolutely sunburnt, and as much as my parents really did look after me, I had sunstroke, and England were playing, I think, against Portugal in the World Cup, and we were beaten, and I was throwing up everywhere. It was lovely. But on that day, there was a man from Brazil called Pedro Lima, who is 17 years of age now. He was born on that day, and Chelsea are looking to buy him. Chelsea are prepared to offer 6.2 million to acquire 17-year-old right-back Pedro Lima from Serie B club Sport, with Pedro initially being loaned to Strasbourg in the first season. We heard some news about this guy about a month or so ago, and yeah, Chelsea, they're still looking at 17-year-olds, and we move into another player who is also of a similar age, ilk, and comes from the same part of the world. Chelsea prepares new proposal, and Estevão Willian could become the biggest sale in Brazilian football. The English are willing to offer up to 55.8 million pounds. You can see what Chelsea are trying to do here. We've already got a stacked right side of the field. We're just going to throw a few more Brazilians in there in the hope that it comes through. But as you guys know, we've spoken a fair amount on the channel about Estevão Willian. Chelsea have been the front runners for some time, and it has been about right now negotiating, going in with Palmeiras to make sure that we get the best possible deal to get as little of that amount coming up front and more of it coming in future segments or parts, I guess you could say. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about these two young Brazilians. And we move into some more news that a few of us, myself included, are kind of a bit like, I don't know about this, because a lot of the times this season when things have been going wrong, we've all been looking for different avenues of blame. I've done it. I've given blame to the players. I've given blame to Pochettino. I've given blame to those above him. And I think the two directors, Chelsea sporting directors, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, I think these guys probably would be some of the most culpable for if this season would have been a full-scale failure. A lot of it would have been down to their decision-making. And to be quite honest, I'm not entirely sure still to this very day. As much as I'm trying to grow in confidence with these new owners, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, I think, have been weak points. So far, since Chelsea have been under that new ownership, I don't think these guys have done anywhere near enough in such a prominent role at the club for me to be confident in the job that they're doing. So the news is that they retain the enthusiastic backing of prominent board members ahead of next week's end-of-season review. Obviously, we've still got football to be played, so I'm not going to foreshadow the events of this post-season, end-of-season review. But to be fair, I do think the last two results here will have a massive say on the mood, on just the general feeling about how this meeting is going to go. I think in terms of what the fans see, it's going to be either Poch stays, Poch goes. If we win both of these last two games and finish in the top six, I'm thinking that Poch stays, and I think it will probably be the right call at this stage. As I kind of keep bringing up video per video because I keep getting reminded, oh, you still Poch out, Benson. I mean, football is a results-based business, and we're actually seeing changes, and it leads us in to talk about Enzo Fernandez. But I will say this, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, you need to pull your finger out. Do more at Chelsea to warrant the backing that those above you are currently giving you. So, these are Enzo Fernandez's comments. First of all, we're going to read out about his thoughts on Pochettino. When I arrived at Chelsea, it was a mess. There were many players. Maurizio brought order and identity to the team. The work ethic is different. It changed everything and it's positive. The group is hard working now. Last season, I genuinely feel as though Chelsea was so stuck when it came to ideas. I think Graham Potter would be the kind of guy that you would say thank you to in a really endearing way if he served you a pint if you're at the pub. But I don't think as a football manager at a club of the stature and size of Chelsea, with so many players to manage, the bloke just didn't do a very good job. Frank Lampard came in, and then by that point, everybody had already kind of tilted their heads down. We lost to Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. It's game over, season over, and Enzo Fernandez was brought in, and by that point then, there was well, okay, I guess my Chelsea career, same for Mudryk, it starts at the end of the season. Now, Maurizio Pochettino has now been in charge at Chelsea for a year. Or he's not been in charge for a year, but it was announced just over 1 year ago that Maurizio Pochettino was going to take over. I actually think it was exactly a year ago today that Fabrizio Romano broke the news. So, I don't think it is a surprise that we have seen it take this long. If you think back to where we were this time last year, there is clearly now progress. That's undeniable. Maybe the amount of it and the speed in which it happened isn't to everyone's liking, and it's left a bitter taste in my mouth all season when I'm I believed, and then it gets stripped away from me. It gets taken away. But in terms of Enzo's injury, Enzo Fernandez, I was playing with pain and injections for 8 months. I had to make the decision to have surgery. It was the best. I was harming the team and didn't want to expose myself. This is actually, first of all, credit to Enzo Fernandez, because to admit that obviously there was something wrong when you just made a big money move to Chelsea, you're desperate to make an impression. Enzo, we can always see, is delighted to be a Chelsea player. He's absolutely loving life in London, and he wants to be at his best for Chelsea. There is a bit of a discrepancy where Pochettino in a press conference, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I'm sure Pochettino came out and said that no one will be playing through pain by having injections. Now, obviously there, either Poch is covering something for Enzo, covering something for the club, or maybe the medical team and Pochettino haven't been communicating properly. I wouldn't be surprised with the amount of injuries that we've had this season, not to throw the blame entirely on the medical team, but then also not to throw the blame on Pochettino. Enzo obviously wanted the best, and it did get to a point, I think if we remember back to the Crystal Palace game. Now, I remember watching a video, I think it's by 442, talking about Enzo Fernandez and why he was being wasted at Chelsea. And there was one line, let me get it up now so I don't misquote it. Enzo is the symptom, not the disease. So trying to get the best out of Enzo Fernandez was obviously a massive sticking point this season for Chelsea. We were playing a 4-2-3-1. Enzo was part of the pivot with Moises Caicedo, a player that has rapidly been improving to brand new levels right now. Moises Caicedo I'm talking about here. Gallagher was playing in more of a number 10, advanced 8 role. He's obviously very good when it comes to that press to try and get possession back for Chelsea. And within that video, we were seeing images, and you can see clips of Enzo Fernandez on the ball so many times, but there's no options ahead of him to be able to make the progressive pass. So when you look at Enzo Fernandez's points here, where he's talking about the club was in a mess last season, we had too many players, now we're starting to work hard, you get the feeling as though there's been a lot of talks about maybe misprofiling in the Enzo Fernandez signing. Moises Caicedo, you can clearly see that this guy is worth his weight in gold. Chelsea have bought themselves a gem. He's an engine. He's absolutely everywhere. And I think there is an issue for Chelsea, and it's a good issue. That's why I said that at the beginning of the video. Enzo Fernandez is right now, people will call him a flop because it's an easy thing to do because the price tag was just astronomical. But there's no doubt in my mind that when it comes to footballing ability, be it on the ball and just generally, Enzo Fernandez is right up there at the top of some of the best players that Chelsea have. to be playing through pain and having injections because of this issue that he's had with the hernia for 8 months. For me, this is, as much as it's not the right thing, and maybe this surgery should have been done ages ago. Look, I'm not going to say that Enzo did the right thing or didn't do the right thing. He's done the right thing now, in my opinion. But I will say, I think it's ridiculous for people to think that Chelsea should just be getting rid of him now. For people, pundits and football media to come out and say Enzo Fernandez just isn't a Premier League player, I think we've already seen on a multitude of occasions just how good this guy can be. And when he is fit, when he is in form, he can be such a linchpin in that Chelsea midfield. I think Pochettino, if he keeps the job, one of the biggest things will be this summer. If Gallagher departs, I think the decision becomes a bit easier. I think if Lavia is then fit, then we could maybe potentially start to see a midfield 3. But I would also say to replace that pressing that Gallagher does to win the ball back in terms of defensive work in the final third for Chelsea, he's right up there in terms of Premier League midfielders for the actions that he actually does successfully in that area of the field. I don't necessarily think we're ever going to get that out of Enzo, but in terms of being that player to make the key pass, I think he's got it in his locker, but he's been playing within himself because of that injury that's inhibited him. And also, genuinely, as much as you can say Chelsea have been better since Enzo came out the team, I don't necessarily think it's about whether or not that can be Enzo's a bad player, Enzo's a good player. If you're playing through an injury and you're a £100 million player, Pochettino is obligated to keep playing this guy. And I wouldn't necessarily say at this point, if it's been a whole season basically that Enzo's been injured, you're not writing this guy off right now. I absolutely believe there is still a top quality footballer in there. Unbelievable free kick that he scored at Villa Park in the FA Cup. Even got himself a goal in that very match at Crystal Palace where Chelsea left it late, but we turned it on in the final moments. Enzo was playing too much football because he was forced to, because there were other players that had injuries where they couldn't take injections just to simply get by. You add into that, yes, these Chelsea players have started to work really hard. You also add into that now, you've got Cole Palmer being able to drop deeper, get himself engaged and involved with that midfield to be able to help that midfield in the transition to get Chelsea moving the ball forward quicker. And I think the numbers that so many of us spend so much time looking at and by default then judging a player, Enzo's numbers massively improve already in this Chelsea team simply because of the work rate that everyone has started to put in. Everybody all over the field is working harder. Everyone is putting in more effort and we're reaping the rewards as a result of it. So I do think there is a very strong possibility this summer that Conor Gallagher will be sold. And I think if he is sold, it probably makes it easier for Pochettino in the sense of, well, of course, then Enzo has to play. But I think it's an even more difficult thing to try and fit Enzo back in that team because I think the way that we're playing now, Caicedo is obviously going to be in there because he's doing such a great job protecting that defence and getting those transitions going, quick passes forward. And I think for Enzo, at the moment, we're looking better because Gallagher is slightly deeper. Palmer is playing central and you've got the wingers working well to bring natural width but also pinning fullbacks. And Jackson's converting chances. So all of the other cogs around Enzo have started to churn. And I'm not necessarily believing it's because he isn't in the team. And even if it is at this point, you've been playing with pain for 8 consecutive months. And it took us all season basically for everyone to be putting in the same amounts of effort. Do not sleep on this guy. That's all I'm going to say. I think we need to wait and see what happens with Gallagher. I have been adamant all year long. I do not want Chelsea selling Conor Gallagher. I think he's such an important player, whether that is starting every game or being one of those impact players that will come on and just work tirelessly for the team. There is absolutely a role for Gallagher, and there is 100% a role for Enzo Fernandez. You cannot lose that brilliance that we saw as such a fundamental key player for Argentina in their run to win a World Cup. You don't just lose it. The man's been playing with an injury. I wanted to just clear this one up today because I feel as though I've criticised Enzo heavily this season. I think it is very bold and mature to come out and just be like, look, I was letting down the team. And I think we all saw that as much as he was trying his best, it was so sluggish, it was so slow. Now the recovery, so important for him. He's probably going to go and play for Argentina still. Whether that's the right thing or not, it's up to him. Like, at the end of the day. But next season, trust me, this guy, Enzo Fernandez, is delivering. Chelsea are delivering next year too. I believe it. I will see you guys tomorrow with a preview for the Brighton game. Massive match. And then, of course, 6 things we learned immediately after full time. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hit the like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new. Come on, you Blues.